Joni Lamb, CEO of Daystar, ignored the advice of famous people and her own children who pleaded with her not to change her views. She lied so much that others started calling her love-struck. But how do you describe her emotional state? While some may see it as a complex emotional web, others argue that it was more fundamentally a deliberate decision to disregard reality. Joni did more than just disregard the counsel. She encircled herself with those who fed her preferred narrative by using her influence to silence those who dared to disagree. Was it blindness, pride, or love? This film will delve into the story and reveal the identities of those who attempted to dissuade her from marrying Doug Weiss. We will investigate a decision that many believe has rocked Daystar to its foundation, from genuine supplications to overlooked warning signs. Return to the era that has generated so much buzz, the tragic accident that kills Marcus Lamb, Daystar's adored boss and Joni Lamb's spouse, on November 30, 2021, sets the stage. Everyone in the ministry was shocked by the loss, and many looked to Joni to wisely continue the organization's. Christian counselor and psychologist Doug Weiss files for a divorce from his 30-year wife Lisa on January 27, 2022. My marriage of 30 years is over. A warning sign or an opportunity for a fresh start? Doug is no longer legally bound by his marriage vows as of May 31, 2022, the day of his final divorce. August 2022 marked the official beginning of Joni and Doug's relationship, which had already prompted others to wonder. Even though Joni and Daystar's passion was developing rapidly, rumors have it that by October 2022, Joni had used Daystar's credit cards to pay for a $37,000 honeymoon trip, even though she hadn't tied the knot yet. She returns to the same spot in May 2023 to withdraw an additional $60,000 from the ministry's card. While some may refer to it as honeymoon prep, the common perception is that it is wasting money. Doug and Joni were married on June 10, 2023, with views on the wedding were divided among those within and outside of the Daystar community. At a Daystar board meeting on August 20, 2023, the son Jonathan and daughter-in-law Susie Lamb of Marcus and Jan are sacked, turning a significant chapter in the story. Consequently, rumors of strife inside the organization began to circulate. It seemed like Joni couldn't make out what many people on the outside could see amidst all the mayhem. Someone was trying to warn her not to hang out with Doug, and it was this open letter she sent to the Lambs. Denise says, "Dear Lamb family, I'm writing this letter with a heavy heart. Last week, just before the baby shower, I met Joni, and listening to her speak was terrifying. She appeared completely unfamiliar to me. She seemed to have been possessed by a demon of deceit. Even though the woman of God was embarrassed by anything Doug said to her, she told me the story while laughing. It changed the Joni Lamb I knew into someone who seemed joyful. Giving in to flattery that makes you feel good is a form of seduction and manipulation. In spiritual battles, the actions of an enemy's demonic spirit reveal who you're up against. If it wants to get in first, a manipulative spirit will use flattery. A man's goal in charming a lady is to discover her emotional vulnerability. When a woman falls for a man's flattery, she is easily manipulated. It is said in Galatians 5, "Do not play along with the useless works of darkness. Instead, scold them." We can choose to ignore or befriend evil when it's at work, or we can confront it head on. This is why deceit is preceded by charisma. Giving in to flattery traps and tricks the target. Flattery is a weapon the opponent might use to exploit your vulnerabilities. During our early dating years, Joni would ignore my concerns about Doug and instead look out for his best interests. I was frightened at this point. It seemed to me like a ghost had manipulated her. It was the things I forewarned her about that she used to be so certain of. When people are under the power of evil spirits, they transform so rapidly that it's hard to recognize them. New things come out of their mouths. I wish to express my concerns to Daystar about this. Daystar is the target of this assault. Since Marcus and Joni have always set high standards for Daystar, no one will be fooled by it. They will be able to expose Joni's transformation as the truth begins to emerge. When they realize something is wrong, the number of viewers will drastically decrease. They are not easily misled because Marcus L. has been leading them for quite some time. As soon as they see a change in leadership, they will know something is off. Within the Daystar family, Marcus Lamb held the position of head. Truth and righteousness were the things he stood for. I saw the devil's plan for Doug as the Lord revealed it to me. If Joni gives in to Doug's manipulation and lets him take over Daystar, the viewers will know he is lying. It's like he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. He is unfit for such a prominent role. He is being used by the enemy to eliminate Daystar. The enemy has used Daystar, one of the most powerful Christian television networks in the nation, to mock the marriage covenant. Joni was not in favor of divorce until she fell for this deception. My impression of Doug changed after hanging out with him for a few days. I warned her that they needed to resolve their issues from the first marriage before tying the knot again. Initially, your mom gave me her word that they would listen to me, but she later told me they wouldn't when Jimmy Evans agreed with all I stated regarding Doug. After hanging out with Doug for 3 days, I can tell you the truth about the serious issues that plagued his first marriage. Worryingly, the dissolution of the first marriage is now universally acknowledged. Your mom reminded me of everyone who is rooting for your marriage to Doug when we met on Friday, the day before the shower. Since I am aware of the true issues, I am able to spot warning signals that others miss. When it comes to Doug, Jimmy Evans only knows what Doug wants him to know. So, Jimmy Evans is on board with this marriage despite his lack of knowledge about the first marriage. Without knowing what transpired, how can you guarantee Joni that he is safe? Jen's safety, her health, her honor, the family legacy, and the trust of the millions of people who believe in Daystar are all in danger. It is crucial for the advancement of God's kingdom, and we ought to pray that Jimmy Evans would see that. I will hope that when you receive a check, you don't press the minimize button. That would be sensible of you. You and Marcus have had a rocky relationship for a long time, and I'm praying that you can set aside your differences and unite as one for the benefit of Daystar. There's no other way to get your mom to admit the truth but that. I am prepared to meet with you all and speak with your mother on your behalf. Hello, Denise. You are all loved by me. I set out to accomplish something as soon as I read that letter. My 6 of us were all contacted at once when I said, "Hey, we need to meet Mom and talk to her about this." The following day, Jonathan accompanied his mother to Daystar to request a family meeting. "Sure, how about we do one after the show?" she proposed. It may have sounded useful at first, but subsequent events proved otherwise. Things seemed to have escalated significantly upon her arrival at her office. Since Joni appeared to be considering taking a plane to New York with Doug, she allowed them both a minute to reflect on a life-altering decision. There isn't even enough time to have a coffee, much less vent about your problems. As one by one, her relatives expressed their opinions and pleaded with her to reconsider. Their fears, she assured them, were nothing more than that. She pointed out, "I hear you, but all I hear coming from you is a spirit of fear." Then she yelled out, "Fear, fear, 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 fear," as she hurried out the door to board a plane to New York. Our concerns were so unheard and unconsidered, it took courage for Pastor Valerie Hartwell to admit that she and Joni Lamb had numerous talks, some of which included wise people's warnings delivered via keyboard prophets. People mostly disregarded those. A letter from Father Valerie Hartwell was among those. She, too, had recently lost her husband, and she and Joni occasionally corresponded. It is an open letter to Joni that she exchanged with you around Thanksgiving 2023. Here it is. "Widow to widow, I wrote you to tell you that I was worried about your quick marriage. We were married for 29 years, and Roy Hartwell was the senior pastor. That was in March of 2023. Your rapid love for each other astonished me. During your engagement and wedding, Jimmy Evans introduced Doug, which I saw on TV. To save your marriage, you used Jimmy to trash talk Doug's ex-wife, which is why I called you out on it. And you're the president of Daystar. And I am contacting Doctor. You're scolding Doug for jumping into a new relationship before you and your kids had a chance to heal after the loss of their grandfather and father. The psychologist, Doug, ought to have known better than to become too close to the grieving family and widow at such a young stage in their grief. You, as a mother, grandma, and president of Daystar, ought to feel much worse for permitting this unhappy marriage to take place, as it has harmed not only your family but also Daystar. He ought to feel horrible about it. In your response, you urged me not to draw parallels between our times of grief. What on earth? You rushed into this relationship just 6 months after Doug's divorce was finalized, sat down with your son Jonathan and attempted to convince him that you were having a hard time grieving Marcus's death, that you and your friend Tom had done so, to prove how much you suffered as a widow, a claim that is not borne out by your book, Through the Storm. You even wrote it. I informed you on Thanksgiving 2023 that you ignored Jonathan and Susie's concerns for their daughter at Daystar in favor of your new husband, and that this caused them mental pain. To dispel Doug's notion that Jesus died for our sex needs, I confronted you. What I meant to say is that if a Christian doctor says that, it would be extremely difficult for children in South Africa to seek medical help. That would make the pedophile, pervert, or prostitute feel even worse about their error. No matter how many men you meet, no one can ever truly replace your children. My mom informed me about that. You sent your children packing to be with a man who has troubled millions of people, including intelligent women. Being married to Doug and relying on false prophecies to justify your hasty second marriage is insane. The noun and the prediction ought to be congruent. I'm sorry to tell you this, Joni, but the prophecies you believed right away in your spirit, you even used them as proof in your book that other people should accept your marriage, were the biggest lie you could have told yourself. Put your emotional, mental, and spiritual health first by taking a vacation from ministry with Doug at the moment. You have hurt Daystar, your children and grandkids, by prioritizing your own needs over the Lord's. So if you still have it in you, do the right thing. I have faith in Doug's abilities as a counselor and as your husband. Transfer Daystar's power to your son Jonathan and those deserving of it. Show your love for your children, grandchildren, and Daystar as the selfless mother you claim to be by letting them pursue their God-given dreams and establish a future for themselves and the Lord before you ruin it. Washington, D.C.'s Jesus Unlimited Church is led by Pastor Valerie Hartwell. Pastor Valerie Hartwell examines the hasty marriage of Joni Lamb to Doug Weiss. In her letter, highlighting various issues that do not make sense in light of the Bible or real life. To tell the truth, everything all transpired far too rapidly. Joni, according to Valerie, didn't give herself enough time to grieve before beginning a new relationship. That is enough to make me curious. It started to appear more like they were deceiving themselves than following God's guidance when they misapplied so-called predicted phrases to justify the marriage. According to Valerie, tremendous family strife and a cloud over Daystar's legacy resulted from Joni prioritizing Doug over her children and grandchildren. If I had to guess, I'd say Doug is the sort to seize opportunities when they present themselves. His knowledge as a tutor was lacking. On the contrary, he appears to have won Joni over with his understanding of psychology, further clouding the situation. The credibility of the ministry was damaged, according to Valerie, because of Doug's poor public comments, such as claiming that Jesus died so that we may have good sex. However, Valerie wants individuals to own up to their actions, not only point fingers. Her advice to Joni is to rest, get well, and get back to repairing her family and Daystar's future. Tough love is necessary to achieve some goals. This should serve as a powerful reminder to all of us to put our emotions in check, exercise wisdom, and avoid actions that could derail our lives or enterprises. Both Joni's family and Daystar's past have suffered because of her marriage to Doug. Because of this controversy, issues that were previously kept under wraps have been widely known. Sometimes the news we really need isn't the one we desire to hear. Even though it's hard to hear, the wisest advice usually comes out on top. The fact that Joni ignored the wise counsel of those who cared for her has put her in a difficult position now. Numerous issues, including the dissolution of her family and the near calamity of the family business, were brought about by her decisions. What we can learn from this is that we can avoid future self-destruction by listening to sound advice with an intellectual and modest attitude.